Absolutely.
Get the little chair.
I hope he or she lives.
Here's following up.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Looking at articles,
come up with these.
one main
It's
grand
wonderful
jury
that you found
approves
it.
Wayne County jail project. Whatever problems we have,
I guess we better get to work. One man grand
jury
jury.
approves Wayne County jail project.
Oh, boy.
This one. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Grand Traverse County Ways and Means Committee. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please, if you'll all rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Just a reminder, if you have a cell phone, if you could put it on silent, would probably be a good idea. Sarah, will you call the roll, please?
Inman,
Here.
Lathrop,
Here.
Lemkool,
Here.
Max Bauer,
Present.
Rennie,
Here.
Thomas. Here. Wheelock.
Yes, ma'am. We are all here. Is there a motion to approve the minutes as mailed?
Yes, sir.
No, we have an additional item.
For the
It's been mailed
minutes?
to us.
Well, that's on the
No,
agenda.
I mean,
For the
I'm
minutes?
sorry.
Mr.
Chairman, I'll make
I'm ahead of you.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the August 21st, 2013 Ways and Means Committee minutes.
And since it was my birthday, I'll support.
Since I wasn't here, I missed her birthday, okay. All right, is there any further discussion? All
And I
those
missed
in
your
favor
flowers.
say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. This brings us to the first opportunity for public comment. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to make comment at this time? Seeing none, we'll move forward with the approval of the agenda.
So we do have one additional item
Okay.
that's been mailed to us. Do we have a handout on that, Dean, or is this?
Clerk has it.
Clerk's got-
Everyone
Very
should have
good.
a copy.
Somebody's prepared. So I move that we approve the agenda with the additional item.
What is the additional item?
It's the
Environmental health program expenditures.
Okay.
Second.
All right, I have a motion by Limcool, supported by Inman, to approve the agenda with the addition of a Health Department report on environmental health program expenditures. Is there further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. This brings us to the consent calendar. Sarah, if you'd read the consent calendar, please.
The purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one commission motion without discussion. Any member of the commission, staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed and placed elsewhere on the agenda for full discussion. Such requests will be automatically respected. If any item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted received and filed or approval is approved by a single committee action adopting the consent calendar. Receive and file, none. Approval, 1. Acceptance of community development block grant for housing programs. 2. Revised HIPAA privacy policy for immediate approval.
Having heard the consent calendar, is there anyone in the audience wishing to pull any item? Or any board members willing to pull?
Just for protocol, Mr. Chairman, I think we should pull B2 and have a separate vote because it's an immediate approval of the Board of Commissioners.
I intend to do that.
Okay.
Okay, so, Charlie?
I'd like to pull number 1, please.
Okay, so we'll have discussion on the items on the consent calendar. We won't need a motion for the consent calendar because we have no items left. So let's talk about first the acceptance of the community development block grant. Jean, do you want to talk about that a little bit, please?
It's going this way then.
This is the county allocation, community block grant. It's for $300,000. It's a semi-annual grant. This is a little different because MSHDA asked us to stop our current grant, which usually would end in 2014. They wanted us to end the grant now and apply for a new grant this year. So we have the grant agreement right now that would be effective for the next 2 years. But it's our county allocation. It's for low, moderate income families, and we've been very successful in implementing that throughout the Grand Traverse region. It's for homeowner repair.
Chris?
I will move for approval.
I'll second.
Support.
Motion by Max Bauer, supported by Rennie to approve the Community Development Block Grant. Further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Wendy, would you like to speak to the HIPAA?
No, that would be Jen, I think.
From Human Resources.
Well, okay. It's a health department issue, so Jen, are you want to speak to the policy then?
Jen Seaman, Human Resources Director. The Health Department has their own HIPAA policy. This is the HIPAA policy for Grand Traverse County that is for our employees.
So there are changes that you want to make, or?
Yep, the changes have to deal with, there's actually, the Department of Health and Human Services came down with some changes that have to take place by September 23rd. And those changes have to deal with electronic information, that things are sent electronically nowadays with health information, as well as business associates. So that information has been included in the policy.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the revised HIPAA privacy policy with the full support of the Board of Commissioners.
Okay. Motion by Inman, supported by Thomas. I guess just from a personal thing, I think HIPAA requirements are one of the worst things that ever happened to healthcare in this country. It's made a mess out of all of it. But that's my own personal opinion.
They are what they are.
Yeah, but I can give you hundreds of examples where HIPAA requirements have not benefited healthcare to individuals. All right, any further discussion? Those in favor say aye. Oh, we better roll call vote that because it's going to take immediate effect.
Lathrop,
Yes.
Lemkool,
Yes.
Max Bauer,
Yes.
Rennie,
Yes.
Thomas, Inman,
Yes.
Wheelock.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jen.
Okay, thank you, Jen. All right, this brings us to planning and development. Brownfield Plan, West State Street. Mike and Jean are here, and if you can identify yourselves, and then we can talk about your project.
I'm Jean Dorenzi, the Deputy Director of the Planning and Development Department for Grand Traverse County.
And Mike Wills with Midtown Development.
Mike is handing out just the new proposal for, not the new proposal, but the proposal for the redevelopment of 133 and 144 West State Street, which is known as the Uptown Development. Brownfield plan.
One site plan which we'll have to circulate further.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Pass
Okay.
that on.
Sure.
The Brownfield plan itself is redevelopment of 13 live-work units. It'll allow public access to the Boardman River with steps down to the river as well. The private investment is approximately $10.6 million. The brownfield eligible activities are $2,872,212, which includes $750,000 DEQ loan. It does not include a $1 million grant that the Brownfield Authority will be applying for. So the overall environmental conditions on these two parcels is well over $2 million alone. The difficulty in building on this property is a substantial urban fill from ground surface to over 24 feet deep. It's urban fill. So there will be special foundations and environmental controls that will be needed for the redevelopment of this property. The duration of the Brownfield plan is for 30 years until 2043. The plan does anticipate that the DDA plan will expire in 2027. Should the DDA plan not expire, we do not anticipate that the developer will be reimbursed. It is a risk on the developer, as in all brownfield plans. There's no risk on the city nor the county for a brownfield plan. The risk is with Mr. Wills and his development team. The property has sat underutilized for over 21 years. You can see, as I indicated on the schematics, that there's substantial urban fill, and that's one of the problems. There's also considerable title issues revolving around these two parcels. With the development, those title issues will be resolved with the City of Traverse City and the developer to allow for the boardwalk to be constructed and allow for this redevelopment to occur. The current tax base is $240,000. The new tax base will be over $4 million. Before I go into the approval process, I'd like Mike just to talk about his, hopefully you know, his experience within the city, and I'd just like him to talk about his experience in redevelopment.
Well, we're no strangers to brownfield. We did River's Edge to start with, and Midtown Development, the CVS project, and on top of that, we've done several others, Fairway Hills, Cambria Suites Hotel, and some other things out of town. But what we like to do is what's in town. We think the market. We like to build sustainable projects that help to build up instead of out, and that's kind of what we stand for. And we're excited about this. We've actually been working on it almost 3 years in earnest, and for almost talking about it for 15 years. So it's been a while. The market acceptance is very good at this stage of the game. We have 8 reservations out of the 13 sites, so the market definitely likes what we're proposing. The River Walk itself is a key component, we think, not only for the city but for us. The River Walk was part of the River's Edge project in the same fashion. We gave an easement to the city to make that happen. Same thing with Midtown Center. So it's a key amenity, I think, that is good for the project, but it's good for the community as a whole. I guess that's kind of a good summary.
The Brownfield Authority approved this plan at their September 20th. No, August 28th meeting, and the City Commission unanimously concurred with this plan at their September 16th meeting.
And I should mention, at that meeting, all those property boundary exchange issues have been resolved, so they've approved that.
Okay, as I understand it, what we need to do is to set a public hearing date for September 25th, is that correct?
That's correct.
I will make that motion.
I'll support.
Okay, I have a motion by Lemko, supported by Max Bauer,
Yeah.
to hold a public hearing on the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority for Uptowns project on September 25th at our board meeting. Is there any further discussion? Dick?
Just one little nitpicking thing here. On your little flyer, isn't that at the west end of State Street? It says east end.
Yes, it is. I've got some other things you can proofread, too.
Well, you might want to have that fixed.
I think we will. Thank you.
Is there any further questions? No, I was telling Mike and Jean before the meeting, I kind of looked at that project as I drove by on my way in here tonight. It's going to be a pretty cozy development.
Very urban.
But I think it's going to be one that is welcomed by Central Neighborhood, which is where I live.
Very good. Okay, we have a motion to hold a public hearing. Is there any further discussion? Charlie?
I have a question on your funding here. Explain this $1 million brownfield redevelopment grant versus the $750,000 brownfield redevelopment loan, and the impact that could have if that does not happen.
The 700, both are pretty critical for this redevelopment to move forward. The $750,000 grant would need to be paid back by TIF, so that is why it's in the brownfield plan.
So it's actually a loan.
It's an actual loan that the developer will receive, but needs to be repaid back by TIF. This loan, as you've had 2 loans in front of you recently that requires the full faith and credit of Grand Traverse County, this loan will not require that full faith and credit. So, but the $1 million grant, we are probably 90% sure we will receive that. If we do not receive that grant, we'll amend the brownfield plan and increase the brownfield plan from 2.8 to 3.8. But that's still, we can't go further than 30 years in a brownfield plan, and there's not enough room for that $1 million to get paid back, because if we don't get a grant, then the developer will have to upfront that additional $1 million.
So
And that could kill the project.
that's quite critical.
Oh, yeah.
Enough to kill the project? I'm no further question.
But we should note that we are very successful in acquiring those grants with our brownfield projects.
Yeah.
You know, and we should note that the developer has to put his money up front, and then he gets the money from the county after the expenditures, because we always have this discussion about, well, why did you give that developer a bunch of money? Well, we don't. They have to spend their money, and then we reimburse it, and then we get paid back out of the TIF money.
That's correct.
All right. Any further discussion?
I guess the only other thing, and I'm new at this, so you'll have to help me. Explain the DDA implication, assuming that it's going to expire. If it doesn't, then they would capture the funds? Is that how that would work, or what does that mean?
Currently, that property sits within a DDA district, so the Brownfield Authority captures the school operating and the ISD tax. The DDA captures all of the local tax. So that plan is in place, the DDA plan is in place until 2027. So the Brownfield plan is an overlay on the DDA plan, and when the DDA plan expires, then just on those two parcels, the Brownfield will capture all of the local taxes.
That portion.
And the state taxes.
So we do know that the DDA plan will expire?
No.
Unless it's renewed.
We can only go by what the original plan, when it was approved, it was for a 30-year plan to expire in 2027. So it's another risk for the developer.
So how does the developer feel about that part of it?
We're nervous. So what happens if they extend the plan, then they continue capturing
Like
those
that.
taxes? Those taxes are then not available for brownfield, in which case we're hurt big time.
Again, would that be enough for you to, if you knew ahead of time, to back out, or if you're in that far, what do you do?
I don't have a crystal ball to look that far ahead.
So you would just accept the risk?
You're 13, 14 years into the plan, you're halfway through it, so, you know, it's going to be hard to speculate what you're going to be at halfway through the project.
I'm just looking at it from the developer's standpoint, because this is quite an investment here on his part.
Yeah, that's a scary thing. It really is.
Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Gene.
Thanks, Mike.
This brings us to the revolving loan fund.
Gene, I think you're on this one, too.
Sit back down.
Gene going?
Where do you think you're going?
Sorry about that. The revolving loan fund, at your August 21st meeting, you approved to receive and administer the revolving loan fund in-house to allow time to do due diligence on economic strategy and how that economic strategy would fit into the governor's prosperity plan. And there's 2 additional steps that are needed, and that is needed before September 30th of this year. It's to hold a public hearing at your September 25th meeting and to enter into the agreement that's within your packet between Grand Traverse County and the Michigan Strategic Fund. The agreement was reviewed by the prosecuting attorney's office, and as indicated within your packet, there was 2 concerns. The first concern, and I'm sure Chris can talk about this, is on Section 6, Item B, the indemnification and hold harmless. He recommended that our insurance carrier review that section and get back on us on if there is any issues with that. And the second is subcontractors, ensuring that they meet all federal guidelines in terms of the revolving loan fund. And those subcontractors would enter into an agreement, and we would put those conditions within any contract that we would have. So it's just a process to try to get this moving and the revolving loan fund out into the public.
Chris, do you have comment?
No, my understanding is the state's position is that there is no negotiation with these contracts. It is, you have to accept their terms. And so I just wanted to just highlight the concerns that I had, the indemnification being quite broad and it going beyond the limits of our insurance, and just to check with MMRMA if they're comfortable with that language, as well as the issues with the subcontractors.
Other questions? Chris?
No, actually, I want this in no way to be interpreted as my approval of this, but I do approve of a public hearing. Therefore, I would move to approve to publish a public hearing for September 25th, 2013, for input into the administering the revolving loan fund in-house. Further, that the first restated grant agreement be moved to the County Board of Commissioners September 25th, 2013 meeting with answer from MMRMA on the indemnification provision found on page 9 of said agreement.
Second.
I have a motion by Max Bauer, supported by Thomas. Further discussion? Herb?
For some reason, the thing that I've got here, I can't find section 6.
It's actually in section 7,
Yeah,
paragraph B.
but there is no section 6 from what I can see in the stuff that we have.
There is in my document.
In looking through this, I see a 4, 5, and then a 7.
And you'll share it with us soon.
I did not want the iPad.
Oh, you got the paper deal. All right.
Yes.
Herb, I think you're right.
We'll see if we can find section 6 and get it to
No,
you, I
just-
guess.
Yeah.
is- I guess
She's got it on her paper.
It jumps to 7.
Section 7,
Oh, it goes to 7?
bottom of page 8.
Yeah, but there is no section 6. So there's a gap in this thing for some reason.
Oh,
we'll make sure that we get the proper documentation to you prior to our meeting next
correct.
week.
That'd be good.
I think it's just misnumbered on the sections.
It could be,
misnumbered
but you
because
need
the
to make sure
pages
it's
are not.
numbered correctly. So,
I'm just moving for a public hearing.
I know.
I guess the only comment that I would make is, I think this gives us more local control over the EDC revolving loan money than if we allow the regionalization of it, and that, I'm not very happy about the regionalization because our success rate locally is pretty high. But we'll see what happens. We're probably not going to have a choice. We have a motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Now you can leave.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us down to the Finance Department.
If I could we have Wendy and Jerry, the Health Department, the Environmental Health Program expenditures item?
That's
Is the
fine.
first
The
item.
additional item.
That's the additional item. I was going to put it under new business, but that's fine. We can do it now.
I'd like to get them home as soon as possible.
Sure.
Not that we're going to be here long, but let's run with that.
Still looking for dinner. Your mashed potatoes and gravy.
Good evening. Wendy Trout, Health Officer, Grand Traverse County Health Department.
Jerry Pugh, Finance Director, Grand Traverse County Health Department.
So Jerry has put together a very nice summary here, but just to give you a quicker summary, we are looking to expend some additional revenues by September 30th for Environmental Health Division. It's in the programs of private water, on-site sewage, and food service programs. These are programs that, compared to last year at this time, we've seen increased revenue. Last year, we did have some increased revenue in these programs as well, and that was, you might recall, we purchased some vehicles for environmental health out of that funds. And the reason behind this is the division, these programs are funded by a combination of some local dollars, but largely through state grant and then revenues generated by this department. And the state grant requires that you expend your local dollars first and then you expend the additional monies. By doing this, we actually maximize that state grant dollars, otherwise we'll have to send that money back. So what we try to do when we come up with the projections is get as close as we can to what the excess revenues are going to be, and then focus on things that we think will improve efficiencies for the department, things that are needed and things that can be used in the future. Typically, if we start to see a consistent trend of enough increased revenue to generate an additional person, you know, we possibly could come to the board. We're not at that point yet. We need to see more than, I think, 2 years with this economy. And the amount of excess right now, which is estimated to be about just under 50,000, isn't enough to support a sanitarium plus all the benefits that go with it. So we are trying to look at ways that we can make their work more efficient so they have more time to focus on the additional need in the programs. They are housed in the public service building, so they are with veterans and some of those other programs. So that's why there's some office space renovation, because that building is much older than the health department. They also have transitioned their ServSafe classes, is what they provide to people who serve food and restaurant owners and things like that, sanitary kind of programming, to the health department, since we now have a large training room in the health services building. So there's some additional training and conference room enhancements there to help support their additional classes. They did do a class today. They used to rent space from Great Wolf Lodge, so we're trying to get all these classes transitioned to the health department and making sure we have all the tools that they need to do that successfully, and that is a good revenue generator as well. There's some additional technology enhancements actually for the workers in the program, as well as the director of the program in their building, and then some additional equipment out in the field and some supplies.
Larry?
Just a quick question, clarification if I could. The expenditures as you've got listed are allowable expenditures under the grant?
Yes.
Wow, thank you.
And Jerry did work with Danny Brown and Dean and Don Sheehan to get some of these estimates for these projects.
Just to clarify the response on that, Commissioner Inman, some of these expenditures, they will come out of local funds, so we cannot make capital expenditures out of grant funds. So if there was any indication that some of these were, like some of the improvements to the facility might be viewed as capital expenditures by the state, but those would come out of the fee revenues that the programs have generated. So it,
Coming
that
back
kind
to
of
the
solves
comment
that
earlier
issue.
that we have to expend revenue derived from the function of the environmental health department before we can use the grant money.
Yeah, for instance, last year when we purchased a couple vehicles, a purchase of a vehicle is not eligible under the grant, but you could use the local funds. The depreciation of those vehicles would be allowable under the grant, but we've typically just purchased vehicles as we could.
I just want to make sure that that question was covered. And the second part is that if anybody ever wants to audit how we did that grant, we're going to document what part goes out of that revenue part and the other part goes out of the grant part, and it's all lined up and blessed. All right.
Dan?
Is this pretty much dollar for dollar? You were asking for like $49,000. The amount you're going to get granted and the amount that you're spending out of your revenue pretty much the same?
We're going to fine-tune this down to September 30th and get it as close as we can so that we're, taking full advantage of, I'm not going to guarantee that we're going to purchase everything we've listed here.
Ballpark, though.
Yeah.
The second question I have is, where's the risk for the county here? Is there a risk if you might not get the grant, or we might not have the revenue? What risk are we taking?
The risk would be if we don't expend this money, we're going to send state grant revenues back to the state after September 30th because we did not expend them.
Do we take a risk if we do spend it?
No.
I don't believe so with what we're purchasing. I mean, there could be a risk long-term if you didn't spend the money consistently year after year, then they may look at reducing their portion of
our grant funding for the next fiscal period, 2013-14, the state of Michigan actually restored some essential local public health service funds, and we'll be getting an additional probably $15,000, $16,000 in these programs next year. So, so yes, if we didn't expend the funds this year, we could see
You'd lose
that
it.
shrink
Yeah, thanks.
next year.
Dean, you wanted to add something?
Just a couple of quick comments. Just to be clear, that this all has to happen by September 30th. And you'll see budget amendments, if they're over a certain dollar amount that may come back after the fact. But Jerry will prepare those and we'll get those to you. And then I just wanted to thank both Wendy and Jerry for, they watch their programs very closely. This is beneficial to the county. But I also wanted to thank, Don Sheehan and Danny Brown, because they're looking at these items. They don't have a lot of time to, compile costs, and they're busy as it is, but, they're finding, everyone is working together on this, is the point that I want to make. And if you look at the items under the office space renovation, I mean, the county, we really benefit from this because we don't have any excess dollars in our facilities or capital improvement fund. We probably wouldn't even be able to do these. So for the health department to be willing to look at those other facility needs that we have, I just want to compliment them for that and thank the other folks that are working behind the scenes to make this happen, and obviously the board, if you approve this as well.
Chris?
First of all, I want to thank Wendy and Jerry. After I received this in my email, I called Wendy first thing this morning and said I would like to speak with you about this before the day is out. And she and Jerry sat down in the office, and one of the things she did point out is if we don't expend this money, we lose a grant opportunity. And, a grant is just another fancy word for taxpayer dollars. And we are taxpayers of the state of Michigan. So then, and I said, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. If we don't accept a grant, there's nothing wrong with that. But then we went through each item, the office space renovation, training and conference room, and I questioned $1,200 for a refrigerator. I said, I can buy one for less. And, this has to have a lock. And, she and Jerry went through this item by item. And at a certain point in time, I said, okay, I'm sold. I would spend my money like this. And it is my money, therefore, I would move for approval.
Support.
Okay, I have a motion by Max Barr, supported by Thomas.
No, is this for immediate approval?
That was my
No,
question.
it's gotta-
Do you need immediate approval tonight? Or can you wait until next Wednesday?
Let's go tonight, so that if they need to enter into purchase orders, there's nothing holding it up.
Okay.
All righty.
Yep.
You're okay with that?
After their time today, I'm comfortable with that.
Or do you have something else?
No, that was my question.
I just wanted to add, I'm sorry, that Tom Buss, the Environmental Health Director, and the sanitarians were part of determining some of these items and did put some careful thought into things that would really help them in their jobs.
Wendy, what color are the rain suits? There's $770 for rain gear, tools, and so I was just wondering what color the rain gear is going to be.
Whatever color Jerry chooses.
Orange. Orange.
Dick, did you?
I'm just kidding.
Hopefully navy or something like that.
Orange.
Does this include a new roost for the turkey?
No.
That's in the other building. The turkey's in the
We're
new building.
purchasing some
Not the old
spikes
building.
to
this
put
is the
on
old-
the
And how is the
lights.
turkey patrol coming?
He's back. Yeah.
What do
I'm
we make
hesitant
dinner
to
of?
say because I sent an email last week to Danny and Dean and said, haven't seen the turkey in the week, and the next morning I pull in and
There's the turkey.
He's been keeping his distance, and we have
Turkey
since learned
season
there's a
opens
cat that apparently follows him
I've
around the building at night.
noticed the like $20 and $30 line items in the claims accounts to try and do something with
Cleaning up
this
the
turkey.
mess.
Yes.
All right.
I'm
You know, I
sorry,
guess the
mention-
one comment that I'd like to make is, I like everyone else, I think Wendy and Jerry for their their help with this project. But we also need to recognize the efficiency of the program as a whole. If we didn't have county employees doing their job as efficiently as we can, we would have already expended this money even during this budget year, and we wouldn't even have the opportunity to make these improvements. Further discussion? Let's do a roll call vote because this is going to have immediate effect, please, sir.
Do we have a motion as amended or what?
Yes.
Lemko,
Yes.
Max Bauer,
Yes.
Rennie,
Yes.
Thomas.
Yep.
Inman,
Yes.
Lathrop,
Yes.
Wheelock.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank
You
you.
guys all set?
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Okay, now we'll come back and we'll do Finance Department.
Okay, starting on page 50, there's just some summary information for your main operating fund, the general fund. I know when you look at the trial balance, seems like a lot of numbers, but at this point in time, if you remember, or just, I don't know if you'd look back, but you're seeing that our cash balance is better, and our revenue control amount, which is just a summary or a grouping of all of the revenue line items. As of August 31st, we're still a little bit, underwater. But that's because, the property tax revenue doesn't start coming in until the 1st of July. I looked at the trial balance before I came down tonight, and we have a positive balance, and the revenue control total, we have more revenue at this point in time than we have expenditures, and that's a good thing because the tax revenues are coming in. So the financial position, when you look at just the trial balance, will start looking a little better, primarily because our main revenue source is being collected right now. Then if you move through your information to page 52, there is a comparison of the revenues by source with the prior year, and I was kind of surprised to see that the tax revenue was actually lagging where we were at a year ago. It's not a major difference, but there are differences in how people pay. This is on a cash basis as of this point in time, but those numbers will change. We will collect more tax revenue this year because of the higher taxable value, and we have less pressure from primarily Michigan Tax Tribunal adjustments than we've had in the past few years. The charges for services revenue, you'll see we're about $110,000 better than we were a year ago. That's primarily from our courts. The court revenues are better. District Court is taking in more revenue than we were a year ago, and the Register of Deeds activity is pretty active on real estate transactions. So the big miss is we overestimated our indirect cost recovery revenue. That's the $379,000 difference there, which is a negative variance. We do have other revenues, though, that will cover that, and I will be proposing some budget amendments later to cover that. When you look at the expenditures, I didn't have time to prepare the notes, so I'm just going through this fairly quickly. I'm not seeing anything on the expenditure side of the budget that is a major concern at this point. We do have, if you look at the general government category, this is on page 53 in your packet. It's primarily due to lower personnel costs in 2 or 3 different departments, and primarily just in how we allocate the defined benefit retirement costs. So we're in budget. The other large variances there, the other item is the insurance billing, and that is primarily just a timing difference. When you look at where we were at a year ago, our budget is actually slightly higher. So this can somewhat distort because it looks like we're spending $1 million less. That's not necessarily the case. This is mostly a timing difference with some of the internal invoicing that we're doing. So the budget is looking, we're in fairly good shape with our both our revenue projections and our expenditure side of the budget. So we'll have a better update with some notes when we do the September 30th, but...
Dean, is some of that personnel expenditure, is it down partially because we're closer to fully staffed in like the Sheriff's Department corrections?
No, you got a slide.
Yes,
Because there's, 300,000, part of that's a timing thing, but that's a lot of money.
right, if you're looking at the public safety function, which is primarily our law enforcement, our sheriff's office, we've expended more to date than we did a year ago, and that is correct. We have been at full staff for more of the year. Last year, we had a situation primarily in corrections and our road patrol where we were under full staffing. And those, that's obviously reflected in the numbers as of 8/31/2012. But for all practical purposes, we have been at full staff in both. That's not necessarily true for all of the year, but we have been closer to full staffing in corrections and patrol this year than we were a year ago, and that does account for some of that variance. But we are within budget on that. So unless there are any
budget amendments?
Here's, yes, I do have a few budget amendments. There aren't many. We have one for the Health Department, which is recognizing some federal grant revenue that we had deferred last year. And then we also have an increase in the Elmwood Timberlea water budget, which was approved by the township, so I'm asking for your approval of the two budget amendments.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the budget adjustments as presented.
I have a motion by Inman, supported by Running. Is there further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Child Care Fund.
I'll take a few minutes on this. The state is requiring that we have our child care fund budget, and this is the state budget, which runs on a fiscal year of October 1st to September 30th of next year. That's due to the state by October 1st. Diane Conklin and Judge Stanton have prepared that detailed budget, which I didn't want to give you all of that detail because it is rather it's rather lengthy. It's a good-sized document, but it also has personnel expenditures in it with employee names. But what I've done here is included a summary of that budget, which is on page 58 of your packet. And then I had also asked Diane Conklin to prepare a comparison, which is on page 59, to give you some sense for how this budget that we're proposing for the fiscal year that will start on October 1st with the current amended budget for the Child Care Fund budget. And you can see we are within about $5,000. And the components change. We have been very fortunate that, that this budget, for at least the last 2 years, has actually come in quite a bit under what we budgeted. But we are seeing some trends that, you don't know if they're going to continue, but we have pretty much, they have built this budget based on where we're at with, the budget that's going to end on September 30th of this year. And the other concern then when I look at this is whether or not it's within, what we have included in the proposed budget for 2014. And it is. This requires a county, if you go back to your summary, my cover letter on page 57, it requires a county appropriation of about $973,000 to cover or to fund this. This is a 50% reimbursement of the items that are listed on page 58. There are some reimbursement revenues that offset that. And one other item that's included in our county child care fund budget is the state ward component, which is running at about $140,000 to $150,000. There's the desire from the court is to keep more of our youth here in intensive programming or services rather than have them turned over as a state ward. So, but we have, at least at this point, the $973,000 appropriation has been included in our proposed budget. So with that, I'm asking for authorization for the board chairman to sign the state child care fund budget so that we can have that to the state by October 1st of 2013.
Chris?
Mr. Chairman, Dean, I think it would be helpful. When I was a new commissioner, at the time Judge Stowe came in, and he explained why he did what he did. And I think it would be extremely helpful to new commissioners to have Judge Stanton come in and explain the child care budget and why she is doing what she's doing and how that correlates with our responsibility, not only to the children, but to the state of Michigan and Grand Traverse County citizens. So it's just a suggestion. So when we do have budget talks, if we could ask Judge Stanton to come in and give us a little brief synopsis. And it's also helpful to the public, because I think that when we're talking about spending $1 million or more of public funds, the public needs to hear why we're doing it.
$2 million.
I'm sorry, $2 million. $1 million of ours, $1 million of...
Yeah.
Well, it's $2 million of ours, you're right. Back to,
Yep.
we are the ones who pay state
I know
taxes.
that Judge Stanton would be very happy to do that. The question would be when we would want her to do that. And I'm not sure what we're going to do with the budget process, but I will keep that in
At
mind.
some point.
Yep.
Well, I think one thing that we also have to recognize is how volatile the child care fund historically has been. You know, some of us who've sat here have seen us scramble around in December and try to cover money or, you know, $100,000 that we're short. You know, we also can remember a year that Judge Stowe was fortunate enough that we did not have a single child during the course of that year housed outside of our community. Well, you know, that doesn't happen. You know, I'm a little concerned, you know, when I read this, the institutional charge is down $105,000. You know, and all it takes is one family with a couple kids that have to be institutionalized, and that $100,000 goes away really, really fast. You know, because,
Yes, it
I don't
does.
know, there was a time that I could have quoted you what Shawano and some of those
Yeah, I
places
remember
charge
what they
per
were.
day, but
Yeah.
it's an astronomical number of
It's
dollars.
like $300
You know,
a day or
and
something.
all it takes is, you know, picking a couple kids out of one family or out of one household that have to be institutionalized for some reason, and we spend that $100,000 really fast.
I think a couple of years ago, Shawana was $260-something a
Something
day.
like, yeah.
You know,
I'm sure
there's a
it's
number
higher
of
than that.
facilities
Oh,
that are
yeah.
easily $300 a day per child
But it's
that
important
we
for
have
everyone
to
to know
send.
why we do this,
Right.
why we have to do this.
And that's why the child care is kind of a dartboard type situation. It's one of those things, you know, we do the best we can, and I think our courts and Dean have done a fabulous job of creating budgets every year, but we all need to realize how volatile it can be. We can be right down till, you know, the end of October and everything's looking good, and all of a sudden, you know, we take a couple kids out of a single place and bang, we're here.
I would move for approval.
Okay. Do I have support?
Support.
Okay, motion by Max Bauer, supported by Lem Cool. Is there any further discussion?
Is this the immediate ratification of the board, or no?
We're bringing it back.
We've got
Bring it
time.
back down.
We've got time to sign it.
All right, okay.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Okay, I believe that brings us down to there's no unfinished business, no new business listed. Second opportunity for public comment. Is there anyone wishing to speak at this time? Do we have a student that would like? We have a student. Would you like to at least stand up and identify yourself,
Did
sir?
she see that? She's shaking
She
her
doesn't.
head.
I'll stand for her.
All right.
This is Kaho Matsumura.
All right.
She's an exchange student from Japan.
Wow.
She's staying with us.
Go up to the microphone, please.
Sorry. Come on.
Come on.
You can handle it, come on.
Yeah, we don't bite.
Tape it and send it home.
No, sir. Yes, it is.
I'm Chris Stegman, and this is my Japanese exchange student, Kaho Matsumura. She's from Kobe, Japan, and she's going currently to Traverse City Central, and she's observing her first governmental meeting for the civics class.
Well, welcome to our meeting.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Welcome to the United States.
Do you have any questions?
My nephew lives in Japan.
Oh,
Speaks
very
it
nice.
fluently, and I met his in-laws, and I could not grasp the conversation, so.
It's kind of how she's feeling right now.
Yeah, right.
About here. There's a paragraph which is going to be somewhat responsible for the composition of this meeting, of what this is really for, and I've been trying to explain it. Would there be a great way of putting this in a synopsis of what really is happening so she could fully grasp what happened here this evening?
Well, generally, I guess the perception would be the Ways and Means Committee, which is the meeting that you are here at, we handle the financial decisions for the County Board of Commissioners. We deal with the monies that we're going to be expending, and that's why you've seen the budget approval, the budget amendments and such. You heard the acceptance of the grant monies and the brownfield monies, because this is a financial decision. This committee, this subcommittee of the whole of the County Board of Commissioners handles financial decisions on behalf of the citizens of Grand Traverse County. Okay?
You got it?
Some of,
Maybe.
some of the things we had for immediate approval, normally speaking, everything that's approved during the month of each month then goes to our general board meeting, and then it gives a final approval. So, but one of the items here was for immediate, two of the items. So that way, it doesn't come to that agenda item, it automatically is approved.
I'll try to boil it down. This is a subgroup that's making a smaller group of a larger group that solely is responsible for the financials.
We're a committee of the whole.
We are the same number.
Oh, I'm sorry, but
Yeah,
but
committee
that's
of the
what
whole.
this meeting is
Yeah.
for, basically.
Yeah.
So far, so
Yeah.
good? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for hosting her.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We'll bring the other one when she has civics.
Okay,
We have two this year.
cool.
Congratulations. All right, this brings us to Commissioner Committee reports.
The only commissioner committee report I have is, if you haven't taken a little program and education about your iPad, I would highly recommend that you do so. The button on the upper right-hand corner of this, if you don't hold it and turn it off, your computer still stays into sleep mode and eats the battery. And the same thing with...
Just enough class to be dangerous,
Yeah,
haven't you?
yeah. And the same thing is, when you don't get this working, there is a little thing
Oh,
over here
yeah.
You gotta
that
feed
you
it.
have to plug in, and you have to charge that up also.
I learned that
So
quickly.
I just learned that.
But you see, to use that, you gotta be able to type.
Well,
And
yeah. But on the same token, if you learn the 5 fingers and the 4 fingers, the 5
Oh, here we
fingers,
go.
squeeze that, and it takes you out of there. He said, these little buttons are a switch, and if they wear out, they have to be replaced.
Good.
By moving it, by going in and out, you don't have to do that. So the other thing is that the 4 fingers, pushing it up, you got to make sure how many of these applications are open, close them. Hold your button down there, the minus port gets on there, because those are going to continue to work on your computer, and you're going to want to close them out, because if you get too many of those open, that will jam up your computer, then you got to take it in, and then somebody's got to repair it. So just
Oh,
a
darn.
thumbnail sketch of some of the things you got to be thinking about. Okay?
What did I tell you? Just enough knowledge to be
Charlie?
dangerous.
So maybe our student, our foreign exchange student could help us with this
Yeah.
technology.
I'm sure.
Is there?
I am
other-
going to double check with her after the meeting what the word for grandchildren is, because I think I know it.
Okay. Any
Well,
other commissioner reports?
My sister-in-law wants grandchildren.
All right, notices and announcements? What is the date? We have
That's it.
the 20,
I heard that
23rd
incessantly over
is our
Thanksgiving.
meeting at the pavilions,
Yes.
correct?
Last year.
Yep.
The 23rd is our meeting at the pavilions?
No, the
and-
23rd is our,
Is
is
our-
our meeting for
Closed session.
closed session.
All
Negotiations.
right, closed
The
session.
25th is the meeting at the pavilions.
How many closed or special meetings do we have on the 25th? 3 now? Is that
One.
what we're up to?
One.
But a couple at the board meeting as well then?
Well, you got a
No,
public
not
hearing.
unless
Public
there's a...
hearing part?
Well, yeah, we have a public hearing.
So we have the 20,
Yeah.
so we have the 23rd is the closed session to talk about negotiations, and the 25th is
Almost
the
done.
thing at the pavilions. Okay. Just reminding everyone, including myself.
Yeah.
Any other notices or announcements?
Just to let you know that I did have a chance to go down to Grand Rapids and Muskegon yesterday with the pavilions, a group of people from the pavilions, to look at a PACE facility. This is a facility to put, to have the elderly who can't really take care of everything, but they still want to live in their home. So it's a daycare program during the daytime, and there's doctors and physical therapists, and so they become responsible for all the medical care for the people that are part of this program. And it takes them out of the having to go into use emergency rooms and ambulance services. So they would call that doctor, or they would come into that facility and they'd be able to receive, if they want to see a doctor 5 days a week, there's a doctor there that can do that. So that takes them, you know, they mentioned that one person was calling the ambulance 18 times in a month and going to the emergency room. That's very expensive. After they enrolled this person into this program, the first month it dropped to 4, and then it dropped off completely for after that. So it's quite a program. The Pavilions is looking at it. We will be discussing it at our meeting with the Pavilions, so we can do that, so.
I've got a note for Chris. Commissioner Inman and I went to MAC, and one of the things I learned at MAC, and I shared it with Dave yesterday after his TIF session in the morning, Chippewa County has filed suit in federal court
Oh, really?
against one of the tribes in their county.
Interesting.
And I don't know the details, but I wanted to make you aware of that.
All right.
And then Soup for Suds is October 11th. This is a laundry project that is done by Department of Human Services people to help people that don't have a washing machine. So they raise funds, and this money then goes to laundromats here in town, and people can go in and be able to do their laundry like on a Tuesdays or Thursday. And so this pays for the laundromat facility, and it's extremely beneficial. And so they're having a fundraiser at Roger and Karen Wittig's house on the Friday the 11th, 6 till 9. It's a great event. I was there last year. Wonderful things that they do, and the house is beautiful, and we appreciate their opening their house for this project.
Further announcements? We have no need for a closed session. We'll
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a
entertain
motion to adjourn.
All gone now. Thank you, everyone.